This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
What number are you calling from?
Well, let's get back to it.
More than 130,000 homes in the UK have been left without electricity as the country is battered by ferocious winds and rainfall and snow. It's like winter outside.
Correct.
The Met Office's rare red weather... Oh, God, not this again. Not this again. The Met Office's rare red weather warning. Red lorry, yellow lorry. Red lorry, yellow lorry is easier than red. Oh. You say it.
Red rare weather warning.
See? Amber and yellow warnings for wind remain in place. Other colours are available. Gusts of 70 mile an hour are still possible in some areas, and flooding is possible along the northeast coastline. Wherever that is. It's urged people to travel only if absolutely necessary, as driving conditions are terrible. But, what was that? That was bizarre. Oh, it was like a ghost just came in here and sniffed. Did you hear that?
No.
It's just me then. Just me then. That was really bizarre. It's like somebody sniffed in my ear. Anyway, police urged people to travel only if absolutely necessary, as driving conditions are terrible. But if you must travel, then drive really fast with your headlights off but your fog lights on, because that makes you look cool. Of course, if you're in a hatchback, you will already be doing this.
Thank you.
The Met Office warned the north-east of England, the north-west of England, Yorkshire, the West Midlands and the East Midlands will experience cold weather until Monday, which sounds like pretty much everywhere except the south to me. Trees were felled, roofs came off, lorries overturned, walls collapsed, snow hit, huge waves battered the coast. Winter hasn't even begun yet, and already it's awful, and one bookmaker is predicting that December will be the coldest ever. But they don't know as much about weather as the Met Office knows about horses. Stay in your lane, bookies. The actual Met Office says it's mixed. Sun, rain, wind, calm, cold, mild for the next month. Is that helpful?
No.
Not really, no. There's going to be a lot of weather, and it will be mostly outside.
Correct.
Mostly. Right, some texts and emails and such from last night. There's an absolute boatload I've got to get through. Holly says, I'm listening to you with my cat whilst in bed. I've got freshly washed bed sheets on, and it's like being in a cloud. It's lovely, says Holly. Are you looking forward to the snow, and what did you have for dinner? I had beans on toast with grated cheese, she says. There is no greater duo. Yum. Beans on toast with grated cheese. So, in other words, you made a pizza. Mike texts, Nick, how would you have it? A socialist society that conveniently forgets the selfish gene that drives all life. Do you honestly think that we actually are about each other? What? Do you honestly think that we all actually are about each other? Does that make sense?
No.
He says, the system that you rail against is the best we have, though it has made obscenity of riches. It has also made livable standards for a great many people. Yeah, I'm not decrying capitalism. I'm just decrying the particular twisted version that we have of it in this country and in America, where winner takes all and nobody gets anything else. Or nobody else gets anything, more accurately. It's not our way or communism, Mike. There are gradations. You can be kind to people while making money. This anonymous text says, how do they know it's a new variant? What do they take us for? How do they know it's a new variant? Well, they asked it. Yeah, they quizzed it. And it confessed after, a little bit of persuasion. D says, where is the psycho cat? We've had one in our family and I'd like to see how they compare. Yeah, I've got details about how to find out whether your cat is a psychopath. Almost certainly is the answer to that question. I'll do that in a while. I know I promised it all last night, but I promise. Barry tweets, can we use vroom vroom in the A to Z for the Christmas letter V? Yeah, absolutely. going to be in want of suggestions for the letter V. So, you can stick it in there. And, of course, we've got one for P.
Peppa Pig World. Peppa Pig World has...
Yes.
Peppa Pig?
It's the right answer. Good boy. Mike says, how are you any better than Farage? Both extreme, both got no answers. Well, there's one difference between me and Nige.
I'm a nutcase.
See? Roland emails, don't forget about the cat story. Yeah, I forgot about the cat story. I'll do it today. Ian says, now this is an interesting thought, because we were talking about Bodger and his supposed hobby, which was making buses out of empty wine crates. Remember that? Or was it just empty boxes? Never mind. He's never done anything of the sort. I'm not saying he's disseminating misinformation, but... Liar! Ian emails, the Boris bus building hobby was intended to deflect Google searches regarding Boris plus bus in relation to the £350 million lie on the side of said bus, which is an interesting thought. And that had not occurred to me. Not just outwardly chaotic, inwardly scheming. Michaela says, if only Johnson had mentioned Peppa the Pig during his megaphone diplomacy via Twitter, everything would have worked out fine. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it would, yeah. There's absolutely no intention of making up with the French. Keeping this phony war with the French going suits us just right down to the ground, and by us I mean the regime. They have absolutely no intention of agreeing with the French. Brexit will never, ever, 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 ever get done. If the French got down on their knees and crawled across the carpet and kissed our shoes and said, you can have anything you want, we'd complain about the way they crawled across the carpet. So, right, OK, that's it. It's off. We'd have complained about the colour of the carpet they crawled over. Blue and yellow. Mike says, you've got to make something of the news. An influencer puppy with over 50,000 followers. That's where we are. It says it all. I think I'm going to give up, says Mike. There was a story last night about just that. An influencer puppy with over 50,000 followers.
Oh, fabulous.
The whole human race has lost its mind. Right, I'll have to keep this up because... there's just no way that I can do all of these messages and the ones that are going to come in tonight unless I keep reading them. I'll have to speed read them. But first, here is a call in Ruislip. Colin.
Nick, good evening.
Yes, Colin.
I'm on about the rail unions.
On
this
about?
Guy who's head of them hasn't poked his head above the water for 2 years. All of a sudden, because someone put the night tubes back on, he's calling a strike.
Well, they didn't really have much to do over the last year, did they? I mean,
but all of a sudden, they've been negotiating for 6 months, and they can't even get a negotiation to put the night tubes back on because it affects their members, which they was running before we had COVID.
So
that's right. He is just a malingerer trying to actually scupper the economy of the country.
A malingerer. I think more accurately, Colin, he is acting in the interests of his members.
But the members used to drive the night tubes before COVID.
That's true.
He could do nothing about them not working, but they was being paid. And now it's affecting their social hours. But what social hours have they had over the last 2 years? Not many, because no one's going to work. So, as I say, he's a malingerer. As for the French, let's be honest about them. They're shipping them over to us. And we've got to take care of them.
No, they're not.
Hold on.
They're not shipping them over to us.
Well, no, they're dinghying them over to us.
No, they're not. They're not doing anything of the sort. The French are not dinghying them over to us.
Well, they're coming from France.
Right, there you go.
And then all of a sudden they're saying, we're not letting your goods across.
No, I don't think that has anything to do with the one and the other. Has nothing to do with it.
They can't fish in our waters.
Yeah, exactly. It's about fishing.
It's not, because...
It is about fishing.
No.
It's about fishing.
The fish in the English Channel belong to us, not the French.
That's actually not true. Just because a fish passes by, why does it become ours?
But they can't fish it. We can't go. But listen, they won't let our goods through just because they're driving through French territory.
Colin, do you like mackerel?
Yes, I do.
Do you? Well, it's just you then, because nobody else in this country likes mackerel, because we have to sell all of the mackerel that we catch, which is the fish that predominates around the waters around these parts, because we don't like that stuff. So we have to sell it to, guess where?
The French.
Bingo!
But listen, when they can't catch it from themselves, we've got to charge them a higher price. So horses for courses.
Oh, right, okay. Well, Frosty the Dough Man can take a seat, because I dubbed that you are our new chief negotiator.
Give me the job, because I won't take any money for it, but I won't write letters that will upset the French.
Right, okay. Can you start on Monday?
I will start tonight.
To start tonight. Excellent value for money. Being as he's free. Good work. Thanks a lot, Colin. We need more like you. 0345 6060 973. Doug texts, is Storm Arwen a boy or a girl? Well, that is an excellent question. I'm going to stick, during the course of this break, I'm going to stick my head out the window and ask for its pronoun. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Thank you for holding. Your call is important to us.
This important call in Manchester from a person called Louise. Louise.
Oh, hi there, Nick. Hope you're well. Hope
Yes,
you're not
thanks.
cold.
Appreciate it.
Right. The Storm, boy, female.
The Storm. Arwen.
Yep. Female. From Lord of the Rings. It's a female character.
Is it?
From Lord of the Rings.
Which one was that? No, don't tell me. It was one with, with the tall blonde people.
No, that was Galadriel.
Right. Okay. Wow. Very, very knowledgeable. Okay, which one was Arwen? Was the short, stumpy, round one?
No, that was Gimli. That was Gimli the dwarf.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'll let your listeners figure it out. Maybe somebody can ring in and tell you which one it is.
Oh, go on. Just tell me.
One?
Put me out of my mystery.
No.
Okay, then.
I don't think it was Liv Tyler. I think it was the girl that was in the castle with I forgot his name. The king, not Theodred.
How can you remember all this stuff?
Because I'm a huge fan. We've watched. I actually wrote to C. McCallum, and he sent me back a photograph signed with him as Miss Randia.
Who?
Back as Miss Randia.
Wait a minute. Okay, Arwen was what's its daughter? You know, the bloke out of Aerosmith.
Oh.
Aerosmith's daughter.
Rock and roll!
Yeah, she's the big tall one with the ears. You know, like Spock's ears.
Yeah, she was the one that married the king when he returned.
Well, don't tell us. I started watching Lord of the Rings about 3 years ago. I haven't got to the end of it yet. About approximately how long is that finale? It's about 3 years, isn't it? About 3 years long. They say goodbye, and then they say goodbye again, and then they say goodbye again. You think it's over now, we can get up and go. But no, there's another hour left.
Bye-bye.
I couldn't believe it took that long to finish that film.
Yeah, well, it was worth it because Tolkien took a long time writing it.
Right.
So, it had to do it justice. But we went to see the French-Canadian Puppet Theatre Company in Thameside performing the Two Towers, and then I wrote to Ian McCallum.
Wait, back up. A French-Canadian puppet company doing the Two Towers.
Yeah, Gollum was in it as well.
That sounds absolutely awful.
No, it was fabulous.
Right.
Full. The theatre was full. And it was fabulous. One of my sons tried to get the poster, from the outside, but he couldn't quite manage it, so we didn't get that. But for Ian McCallum was a bonus writing to him and him writing back. So
right. So you got a letter back from Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The you shall not pass bloke.
That's the one.
Right.
That's him. So I just thought I'd tell you, the Storm is female.
Okay, Arwen is female. Now we know. Thanks a lot, Louise. Appreciate it. Thank you. 0345 6060 973. So pronouns are she and her. Bruce tweets, how come every time it's windy here, it's also windy all the way over here in Ohio? Can you kindly keep your weather to yourself? It scares my cats. Thank you, says Bruce. Well, it's all connected, isn't it? Kay emails, I looked up positive news the other day and I came across popcorn insulation. Great idea. That is a great idea. Popcorn insulation. That would smell a bit, though, wouldn't it? But every time you get hungry, you just punch a hole in the wall. Problem solved. Annabelle says, why have we jumped to the letter O? I've got no idea. Is it the letter O or is it the letter something else? Don't ask me about that language. It's all Greek to me. On that subject, Joe texts, isn't omega the last letter of the Greek alphabet and the first letter alpha? Got no idea. Sue email, but thanks for asking. Sue says, we could send a select group of Tory frontbenchers to do border patrol duty in France, such as Jacob Rees-Mogg, Priti Patel, Dominic Raab and Nadine Dorris. The sight of this lot just might make the migrants have second thoughts about coming here, says Sue. I think you've got a plan there, Sue. It's like Hammer House of Horrors. Welcome. Daphne texts, my cat has a hot water bottle and a lovely fur blanket. He comes from Egypt, so he feels the cold. Okay. Zach says, how do cats feel the cold? I mean, they're covered in fur, for crying out loud. I think they just pretend. There doesn't seem to be any amount of heat they do not like. Zach texts, well, it just helps them sleep. Not that they need any help in that regard. Zach says, we often give our cat Ozzy a microwave winter warmer. It's furry. You warm it up for 60 seconds and it smells of lavender. We call him Moses. There's also a panda called Lucas. Wait, you call the cat Moses and you've also got a panda? Or your furry winter microwave warmer is called Moses and you've got another one of those called never mind. Nick tweets, I was wondering if there's a way to avoid listening to the adverts on the radio, perhaps via a podcast or catch-up scenario. Well, I'm glad you asked there, Nick. Yes, of course. We squirt this show and the one on Friday up the internet. It's a podcast called Nick Abbot, The Whole Show. We take the news and the ads out, which means it takes less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity and won't have to start an OnlyFans site to pay your fuel bill. Ask for it by name on an internet near you. Nick Abbot, The Whole Show. Chris says, I think we should put MPs on universal credit and the horrors of claiming PIP. Will they cope? No, of course they blooming well won't cope. Because they've never had to do anything like that. They've never had to suffer a privation. They think suffering a privation is getting by on only 85 grand a year and £250,000 expenses. What? It is about £250,000 in expenses, which of course they can keep in the family, even though they're not supposed to. There's a workaround, and you can employ your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or somebody who you want to be your wife, husband, boyfriend or girlfriend.
Disgusting.
What a racket, eh? Tony texts, Tom Swarbrick played your Trump's woman-man camera TV clip on his show last night.
What?
This presumably, this came in yesterday, so it was on Thursday night. Tell him to get his own clips, says Tony. Oi, Tom, get your own clips. These are mine, my precious. Mike says, Plato had his republic, Marx had his system, Locke had America. What do you have? You have a ridiculous belief in humanity. Well, what else have we got, Mike? You've got to believe in humankind, because there ain't nothing else. You can't walk, talk and squawk with the animals. That's a film. You have to have faith in humanity. I mean, it's dissipating. And has been doing so for, quite a few years now. for no particular reason that I can think of.
I'm president. Can you believe it?
Yeah, nothing really comes to mind at the moment.
I'm a whiner and I keep whining and whining.
I can't think of any reason why my faith in humanity has dissipated over the last few years.
I can be more presidential than anybody.
But I'm sure if you give me enough time, I'll come up with it. Of course you've got to have a ridiculous belief in humanity, even though they disappoint you over and over and over again. Even though some of them shouldn't be left to run a bath, let alone a country.
Donald Trump is not a nice person.
I bet he runs that country again. Because there's a certain element that will just vote for him regardless.
I love the poorly educated.
Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. What do you think, Kanye?
Whoop-dee-dee scoop poop.
Yeah, there's another one. I'll sum them up for you. There it is. Joe texts, our MPs are not the best people for any job. They are the chosen candidates selected from local party members by local activists. Then we just get to vote for one in a general election. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it's not a premium selection, really, is it? These have been pre-selected for our inconvenience. Ain't that right, Bodge?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Who selected you, by the way? And can they get their money back? LK tweets, they don't come here by illegal means. They don't have to come here, full stop. I think we know what she's talking about. She or he, sexist, LK, ELKAY. LK. They don't, and much of this is in capital letters. They don't have to come here, like he or she or it is shouting at me. They don't have to come here by illegal means. They don't have to come here, full stop. I haven't read anything that designates the UK as the terminus for the whole world's population. LK, I want you to know that I don't mean this in an insulting way, but you're an idiot. This text says, let the migrants in and give them 5-year visas. After 5 years, if they have proven themselves to be good citizens, then they get to stay. If not, bye-bye. Well, I think maybe that would be a good idea for everybody. Everybody is on a 5-year rolling contract in this country. If by general agreement you're doing okay, then you get to stay. If not, then it's arrivederci. Bonsoir, tata.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Good idea there, Anonymous. See, I'm really rattling through them. I'm almost ahead of myself now. I am doing very well at my job. Paul tweets, Mr. Johnson on Twitter was appealing to his base in true populist fashion. So obvious, too. Yeah, it seemed obvious to me. But that's the nature of international politics. It's almost never to their immediate audience. He didn't write that letter to Macron. He wrote it to us. He wrote it to the Daily Express and the Daily Mail and the Telegraph. And his fans. It wasn't to the French at all. It was to us. All politicians, when they speak to foreign audiences, aren't actually speaking to them at all. It's all directed at us back home. Sue emails, speaking of Donald Trump, as you have no doubt heard, Michael Cohen, his former attorney, has claimed that Donnie will not be standing in 2024 because his ego can't stand to be a 2-time loser.
Oh, shut up!
Let's just hope that's not fake news, says Sue. I know it's a long way off, but we need all the good news that we can find at the moment. That is right. We need some good news, some touchy-feely news.
Touch, feel, that's what I do.
OK, now I need a shower. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC. It's 10:30, the news headlines with Zora Suleiman.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Some nobody.
Paul texts, Prime Minister Boris Johnson and fiends. Yes, I said fiends, he says, are becoming more and more incompetent every day. When will people realise that the joke is over? It's not funny anymore. I thought I'd heard the most moronic, stupidest things this week from our top-tier MPs. But then I discovered Nick Fletcher, Conservative MP, who blames the rise in violence on Doctor Who being played by a woman. I kid you not. Look it up on the internet. I most certainly will do nothing of the sort. Oh, all right then. This is a quote. In recent years, we have seen Doctor Who, the Ghostbusters, Luke Skywalker, the Equalizer, all replaced by women, and men are left with the Krays and Tommy Shelby, the MP for Don Valley says. Is there any wonder we are seeing so many young men committing crimes? Wow. Young men are committing crime because positive male role models on TV have been replaced by female characters, an MP has suggested. Yeah, I know. Oh, you've probably heard this already. This was a semi-large news story this week. I mean, it's really hard to believe. These keep in mind that these people, these MPs, are the best of the best. And as I suggested yesterday, maybe it'd be a good idea, just for giggles, to see what the second best look like. Speaking in a debate on International Men's Day in Westminster Hall, Conservative Nick Fletcher highlighted the difficulties faced by many young boys, telling MPs that a number of them were lagging behind at school. He said boys needed to have a positive male role model and encourage ministers to work on encouraging more men to become teachers. Well, pay them a decent amount would be a good start. He said, there appears to be a tiny yet very vocal minority who want a female replacement for every male character or good role model. In recent years, we've seen Doctor Who, Ghostbusters, Luke Skywalker, no less, the Equalizer, all replaced by women. Okay, Luke Skywalker was not replaced by a woman. It was a different character. And he said, men are left with the Krays and Tommy Shelby. And I have got no idea who that was. So, fortunately, it puts in brackets afterwards, from crime drama Peaky Blinders. Never seen it. This is the MP for Don Valley. Wherever that is. He said, is there any wonder we are seeing so many young men committing crime? I'll sum up his argument for you. What are you talking about? He says, these programs make crime look cool. What? Luke Skywalker and... Oh, no, he's talking about the Krays and Peaky Blinders. Well, all TV programs are about murder. In fact, murder is the human race's number one source of its entertainment. I mean, if you think about all the most popular programs, outside of the Antiques Roadshow, I can't remember the last time anybody got killed on the Antiques Roadshow. But outside of that, everything is about murder. And it doesn't really matter what time of day it's on. Every program on TV is about murder. Usually the murdering of women, which is a big one. Oh, we love that for some bizarre reason. Can't say I watch any of them myself, but, that just makes me a freak, I suppose.
Correct.
I can't believe it. I mean, just when you thought you'd heard it all. Alistair Carmichael, Home Affairs spokesman for the Liberal Democrats, said, it seems Nick Fletcher has stepped into the TARDIS and taken a trip back to the 1950s where his attitude belongs. OK, well, here is the news, Nick Fletcher. There are, apparently, according to you, few male role models on television. Don't make no never mind, because kids don't watch TV. Like, ever. You know what the average age for people who watch BBC and ITV is? Go on, go ahead and guess. I double dare you. I bet 61. My glamorous is it? Huh?
61.
See, smart Alec. This is what I have to deal with. You see? Just blew the sails right out of my ship. Blew the wind right out of my sails would be more accurate. Now I have become discombobulated. You just ruined it for me. Thanks a lot, mate. 61 years old is the right answer. 61, average age. Which means that at least half the people that watch BBC and ITV are post-death. They're sitting there in their chairs, but people haven't realised they've gone yet. Kids don't watch TV. Ask a kid what they last watched on TV, and they'll look at you bemused and say, What's television, Grandad? You say, why, you little? Luke Skywalker has been replaced by a woman. No, he hasn't. It's a different character. Is it polite to say numpty in relation to a member of Parliament? An honorary member. Doctor Who. I mean, who even watches that tripe anyway? Doctor Who, for crying out loud. The last time I watched Doctor Who, God, it must have been in the early 1970s. I have said this many times on air, and I know I'm not misremembering it. And I can't even remember which Doctor it was. Doesn't make no, never mind. He was in a tent, and he was outside a tent. And no, hang on, let me get this straight. The Doctor walked inside the tent, and he got zapped by a baddie, and it reduced the Doctor to what I can only describe as a pulsating pancake on the floor. It looked like something the dog had thrown up. It was just bubbling. This sort of smear of ooze on the floor. Used to be, 6 foot tall and dressed in a cape or whatever it was he was wearing at the time. I don't know, like a scarf a mile long. And it was reduced to this bubbling puddle of slime on the floor. And his assistant ran into the tent, looked at the slime on the floor and said, "Doctor, are you all right?" And I thought, this is not a show for me. I think it's not very believable, I thought. I'll go and have my tea. Fish fingers, please, Mum. Doctor Who. Who watches that stuff? It's not kids. Kids don't watch TV, so who is actually watching Doctor Who? Answer the question. 0345 6060 973. Here's a call in County Durham. Sean.
Hello, mate. Do you know, Peppa Pig's got to isolate. You know, I can't believe that fat Boris getting on that kid's...
How he managed to squeeze himself into there is a mystery. How he managed to get back out again is a wonder.
They had to get a crane to get him out. It cost 100. They're going to get paid £100,000 for seeing Peppa Pig 6 times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if he did.
Well,
get it
I wouldn't be surprised either. I bet he was on a freebie going in there.
Oh, he's got a free VIP pass for life.
Yeah, you can go straight at the front of the queue. You can barge straight to the front of the queue. Yeah.
Especially when he smashed that kid's bicycle on that machine thing.
He smashed a kid's bicycle on the machine thing?
Well, you know what he was sitting on, the little car thing.
Yeah. Well, that had to get taken out of service straight away. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
that broke.
Yeah.
So he's going to get billed for that, I reckon.
Right. He went on one of those speak your weight machines. It says only one person at a time. Yeah, that old one.
But I can't believe it. This half-wit's got to go before Christmas, like.
Well, that would be a happy Christmas, depending on who takes his place. That would be a happy Christmas, wouldn't it? That would be a Christmas present to the nation, depending on who takes over.
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
I take that back.
Oh my God!
I take that back. Please stay, Bodger. We'll miss you when you're gone. All right.
You're not getting a Christmas card off me, the fat slob.
Are you talking about Peppa Pig or exactly? That poor pig. Thanks a lot, Sean. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Now, there's just a boatload that I want to talk about tonight, including, but not limited to, psychopathic cats. The one thing that Christmas is actually all about that we might not be able to get our hands on, and this new variant thing. Exactly. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbott.
A big sack of monkey nuts.
Yeah, you got that right, dear. Big sack of monkey nuts. Al texts, a mask will not stop a virus. All it is a placebo to make you feel better and self-righteous in your virtue signalling. I trust my immunity, not your propaganda, says Al, who's clearly thought about this a lot. I can't believe after all this time, is it like 2 years now, people still are misunderstanding what a mask is for. A mask is not to protect you from what other people have. A mask is to protect other people from what you have, you idiot. Amazing, after all this time. This is where we are, I think, that people make an instant decision on any given subject with no regard to information of any kind, and then stick with that decision regardless of any new facts that become available. Almost like it's a loss of face if you change your mind or accept that you were wrong. A mask will not stop a virus. No, but it helps. Masks are back, by the way. I'll come to that in a minute. They went away for a little while. I don't think anybody was wearing them anymore, like not in the trains. Anyway, not in shops. We just sort of sloughed them off with great relief and thought, oh, finally, we don't have to do that anymore. Well, big mistake. Yes, we do. I've always thought that we're never going to slide smoothly out of this crisis, not with you-know-who in charge. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen, is it? Is there any other country in the world where you could... Oh, well, yeah, of course there is another country in the world where you could get a page full of clips of them saying stupid things.
I'm not a doctor.
You know, things like that. Like this.
This, whatever they want to call it, you can call it a germ, you can call it a flu, you can call it a virus, you can call it many different names. I'm not sure anybody even knows what it is.
Yeah. It's just us in America. How embarrassing. John emails that Nadeem Zahawi, the new Secretary of State for Education, is achieving the impossible and making it look like Gavin Williamson knew what he was doing. What are the odds on Gav making a comeback? I don't know. Let's ask him. He's unsure. He does lay out his patriotic credentials, though.
I just reckon we've got the very best people in this country. Much better than the French have, much better than the Belgians have, much better than the Americans have. That doesn't surprise me at all, because we're a much better country than every single one of them.
Oh. Wow. I mean, the government of all the talents. Have you ever seen anything like it in your life? Even their cult fans are finding it increasingly difficult to support them, to find ever more incredible excuses as to what it is that's going on. Pete says the idea that migrants are overrunning this country is hilarious. People don't understand numbers. An illustration, the number of people who arrive every day on our shores is proportional to a football match at Wembley Stadium with 90,000 people, where 2 more people arrive, and the rest of the crowd claims that the stadium is overrun and there will never be enough hot dogs and beer anymore. Never enough beer anymore.
Booze.
People don't understand numbers. Let's ask an expert.
86%, 5 million, and of course, over 50%. And what I'm saying is, an additional 162 million, and that comes, by the way, on top of the 500 million. Now, 36 billion, of which 5.4 billion, and probably one of the biggest of 500,000 of over 16,000, massive, 500,000, and 1.7 billion, and then a 1.4 billion, 250,000, 6 million. Basically 3.1 billion. Right now, that's a big number, and that's exactly what I'm delivering.
Thanks for delivering.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hey, you remember Chris Whitty, don't you?
Boring.
Yeah, that's him. Professor Chris Whitty has suggested that people might not be willing to accept further coronavirus restrictions. and the government is going to have to find a different policy if the majority refuse to back tougher curbs. Relax, Chris Whitty. We're not French. Bodger could, in extreme circumstances, Bodger could call out Prissy Patel to encourage people to obey the rules. The Chief Medical Officer for England, Chris Whitty, said his greatest worry at the moment was that the public would not consent to another round of restrictions on their daily lives after nearly 2 years of being constrained by the pandemic. 2 years, is that all? Wow, it seems like 20. By the way, I do another podcast. I do 3 podcasts in all. One of them is called The Nick Abbot Habit, and it's from old shows. I take the funny bits out of old shows, stick them together. It's about half an hour long, and it comes out on a Monday. And at the moment, I'm raiding old shows from 2 years ago almost, in just before COVID had hit. We were hearing about it, but it hadn't actually affected us yet. And it's really interesting listening to what people were saying and how we were thinking at that time. If only we knew what was about to happen. It's bizarre. It's also just the show that I'm doing at the moment, taking clips from, is the day after our escape from the clutches of our evil European overlords. No! Exactly. And people were in high spirits. They were having a great time, having bunged a bob for Big Ben's bong. And if you have half an hour and you wish to be amused, then I think it'd be right up your alley. Ask for it where you get a good podcast. On an internet near you, I think you'll find it. And it's called The Nick Abbot Habit is exactly what it's called.
Correct.
The Nick Abbot Habit. Anyway, back to Chris. The Chief Medical Officer for England, Chris Whitty, said his greatest worry was that the public would not consent to another round of restrictions on their daily lives after nearly 2 years of being constrained by the pandemic. Well, but I don't know. I mean, we seem to have a masochistic streak to us in this country. We seem to actively enjoy suffering. Please, sir, may I have some more? He said that it was too early to speculate whether fresh measures would be needed to deal with the Omicron variant. Whitty offered a relatively upbeat assessment of the Delta epidemic in Britain, saying that the outlook was actually reasonably manageable. Reasonably manageable if we had a reasonable manager, Bodge.
I can't comment on that.
Whitty said all this before. I mean, you remember right at the beginning of this, he was saying that we weren't going to. We weren't going to take it. In fact, isn't it that fear exactly that we would not be good little boys and girls and go inside when we were told? The reason that Bodge didn't do more earlier, that we were very, very late out of the gate, with the result that a lot of people died that didn't need to. Wasn't that the reason? That they didn't? They were concerned that we wouldn't take instructions. They don't know us very well, do they? Whitty thought that restrictions could not be imposed too early, or people would give up on them. But we didn't. But he's still saying that we might give up on restrictions, and you know what? If he keeps saying it, one day he'll be right. If they keep sending us indoors and making us do this and do that, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and rules, then eventually we're going to snap. But I don't think, I can't see that happening now or soon. That's just not who we are, really, is it? We do enjoy a little bit of suffering because it gives us the opportunity to say, like, moan, and then, well, mustn't grumble. We should have that printed in, welcome to Heathrow. Mustn't grumble. Surveys apparently have found that the vast majority of us have supported restrictions and are eager to continue doing so, surprisingly. But Chris Whitty said political leaders needed to take a temperature check to see whether we would continue to support restrictions. A temperature check. Well, I don't mind the idea of them taking my temperature. It just depends on how they're planning to do it. I mean, under the tongue, yes. Armpit? Oh, okay then. Anything else, and I think they're going to have to pass a law or at least give me a lollipop. Whitty said, I think we will maintain public consent for restrictions provided that we're clear to people what the logic is and provided they feel that we're being entirely straight with them as to all the data and the knowns and the unknowns. Okay, well, people seem to be immune to logic. And as for the knowns and the unknowns, and them being entirely straight with us, all we have to rely on is to trust this government to do the right thing. Yeah, we're doomed. If that's what we're relying on. The latest polling for YouGov suggests strong support for measures such as compulsory face masks, working from home, even lockdowns for the unvaccinated, commanding majority backing. Wow! You don't get vaccinated, you don't get to come out. But that's good, I suppose, because of what Bodge said today. Compulsory face masks is what he said, and something about tests for travellers. But as there was supposed to be tests to keep this thing out in the first place, and they weren't done, according to people who came in on flights from South Africa, then we can take that with a pinch of salt. Still, I'm sure he's doing his best. Which is worrying because he actually said that masks must be worn in shops but not in hospitality venues. Because presumably the virus is frightened of alcohol? Booze. That makes as much sense as anything else I've heard all year. Especially coming from a bloke who didn't even wear a bloomin' mask, sat next to the actual David bloomin' Attenborough, or in an actual bloomin' hospital. No! And now people are going full gloom about Christmas because Bodge didn't rule out a lockdown over the big day. Reporters asked him and he wouldn't answer whether we'll be lonely this Christmas without you to hold. Lonely this Christmas, lonely and cold. It'll be cold, so cold without you to hold this Christmas. Get Mud on the phone and they'll explain it to us. Not picking up. Keep trying. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Don't let me leave tonight without doing the psycho cat thing and the one thing that we rely on at Christmas that we might not be able to get. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Well, the whole world's gone crazy.
Shut up.
I can't. A what? A dog phone? Now I've heard everything. Edward texts, this the last few from last night, and then I've got to start doing the today. Oh my God, there's so many of them already. I'm not done with the last nights yet. There's too many. People have stopped calling. They just text and tweet now. It's like if this goes on, the human race is going to lose its ability to speak. You know that, don't you? I mean, eventually, I'm sure that will actually be a thing. Like, our little toe will become fused onto the one next to it. You know, the one that's got no name. Poor little toe got no name, but the little toe will get fused in because why do we need that one? And we don't grip anything with it. We can't. So it's unnecessary. So eventually, you'd think that it would become, the one like a thumb on the end, like a big toe on either side. But we'll also lose the ability to speak because nobody does that anymore. People go to, you've seen this, a group of friends will go to the pub and they'll sit around the table. Every single one of them would be gawping at their phone, not communicating with the people that they're there with their mouths, but typing to people who aren't there. Yes, like that old bag said just now. The whole world's gone insane. But dog phones, that just that's about the silliest thing I've ever heard. Now, wait a minute. I've read those. I know that I've done that. Joe says... No, I've read that. Joe texts... Thanks for your sensible comments on the refugee situation. I visited the camps in Calais and Dunkirk. People are living in horrendous conditions with shortages of food, water and sanitation. As winter sets in, people are going to die of hunger and exposure. If I had a boat, I'd go over there and try and rescue a few refugees, especially children on their own, says Joe. And an element of seriousness there. Dinesh says, what's happening to your... no, I read that one. How come these have all appeared again? I thought I got rid of them. Edward texts. Now, this is good advice. If you can lead your life like this, then you'll probably have a better chance of having a happy existence than not. Just digest this. Happiness, he says, is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. There you are, you see? If you can't love the one you're with... No, wait. If you can't love the one you want, love the one you're with. I think we're going to need Crosby, Stills and Nash on the phone as well. Once you've got in touch with Mud, get Crosby, Stills and Nash on the phone. Let's have a call in Selby. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Nick.
Paul.
You were saying no one's phoning you up, so I thought I'd phone you up.
Texting. Everybody's texting. I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of texts to get through.
No, I'm old-fashioned. I prefer to speak to
Good
people.
for you. Using your mouth. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you'll lose it.
Absolutely. Anyway, Nick, I went out last night for the first time in over 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Disco dancing.
To Selby. Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, it wasn't disco, but it was some local musicians, including a couple of my, boys,
Yeah.
just playing live music. And I just went along, and it was a really good couple of hours. And it was all about some charity that looks after men with suicidal tendencies and stuff. But
Right.
that was actually incidental, but quite interesting. But
I really feel for
nice.
musicians
Yeah.
or people in the arts in general. I mean, everybody's had a pretty bad time. Not everybody, but a lot of people had a really bad time over the last 2 years. But people who had skills, people who played in orchestras and like ballet dancers, internationally famous people who had a very revered and desired and rewarded skill, suddenly their talents were worth zero. And they really haven't made any money over the last 2 years, and I just feel terrible for them.
So do I. I mean, this thing last night, I don't know if they're professionals. Well, they are. They're kind of semi-professionals, But as you said, over the last couple of years, there's been very little. But
Yeah.
I'm pleased to say that, I only live in a little small town, and there's this one little venue that actually sort of promotes local bands and that. And the groups I saw last night were professional level. And after saying that, I know quite a lot of professional musicians, actors and what have you. Some of them are working down my local co-op, actually, mate,
Yeah.
at the moment, because there's absolutely... It's coming back, though. One of the girls in the shop, in the co-op, she's a theatre carpenter.
Right.
And she toured with Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
And as of January, they're going on a sort of tour around England and
Right.
that. And
Great.
it is coming back, mate, yeah.
All of the people that you see on the stage, there's 10 times as many people behind them who are also, they have great skills, and they had a good career and a life, and they were in demand, and then suddenly it all just completely dried up. And you remember that horrible poster of a ballerina and with the tagline from the government that I can't remember what name they gave her, but Debbie doesn't know it yet, but her next job is in IT. Well, she doesn't want to be in IT. She wants to be a ballet dancer, for crying out loud. Awful.
No, she'll be all right. She can go work at Amazon, It's just outrageous.
Dancing down the aisles of a fulfillment centre, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
but you know what?
go on.
I'm obviously a Londoner by kind of like I lived there half my life. But up in Selby, which is kind of my historical home, when you go out like I did last night, you just see the amount of local talent there is. Really, really top quality talent.
Now, wait a
Next
minute.
Friday, there's a comedian coming on Friday night at the town hall. He might be sold out. But, things are starting to come back and people are getting in. And so that's kind of positive. But I phoned you up, to be honest, Dick, I didn't want to didn't know what I was going to say, actually.
Well,
You said,
it's an
you're sort of
excellent
grown up, mate.
interjection to this show. Very, very good work indeed. What was what was the music on offer last night? What did they play?
Well, there was these couple of lads who know one of them really well, and they were doing a duo of acoustic kind of. It was all acoustic, but harmonies. And
so it wasn't a
the
cover
guy
band; it was their own stuff, right?
Oh no! They've got 2 LPs out.
Oh right, okay.
And no, they've got their own studio around here. There's lots of them. I don't know if you remember. I think you're old enough, actually. Do you remember Bill Nelson that used to be in Bebop Deluxe?
Are you kidding? I saw Bebop Deluxe about a half a dozen times.
Right.
I touched Bill Nelson's shoe. I can remember that vividly. I was right up the front, and I just reached over and I touched his shoe. I didn't really know what to do after I'd touched his shoe, but it was there and I had to do it.
You didn't wash your hands for a week, I hope.
Not for a week, no.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't know the guy, obviously, but apparently once a year he does a sort of Bill Nelson review somewhere around here.
Does he?
And got thousands of, well, you can look up on the internet, you'll know. But he actually lives in Selby and has done since he moved, when he got the Bebop Deluxe stuff going.
Yeah.
He bought a house next to my uncle, actually, in a little village outside Selby, and put a studio in there. And I think since then he's worked on recordings, producing, that sort of stuff, you know.
Well, that's good to hear. I just absolutely love Bebop Deluxe. He's one of the best guitarists I've ever seen. In fact, one of my favourite songs of all time is the live version, because they had a live album called Live in the Air Age. And there's a live version of Adventures in a Yorkshire Landscape on that album. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Absolutely. Do you know what? There's so many people around like that. You kind of think, why the hell are they not being megastars?
Right,
but
exactly.
The guys, these 2 guys that do their thing, I would have said they were. Well, one of them reminded me a little bit of James Taylor with his voice and that, where they were playing like hard driving kind of blues and stuff and all that, and bit of set, and they're very good. And just as I couldn't stay very long, so I'm not in very good health, to be honest, you know. And there was this guy that came on. He was about 6'6". He was a massive bloke. He came on and just picked up this guitar, which looked like a mandolin sort of thing, and he just stood there and accompanied himself on all these blues things, none of which I'd heard before. I think everything was his own stuff. And he sounded like sort of Muddy Waters or, you know, someone like that.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic place to be, Paul. I'll see you at the box office.
Hey, listen, mate.
All right, thanks a lot, Paul.
Anytime, yeah.
Excellent work. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Yeah, I'm gonna say that again. The live version of Adventures in the Yorkshire Landscape is one of my favourite. It would be in my top 10 favourite songs of all time. The live version on the album Live in the Air Age, Bebop Deluxe. Absolutely fantastic.
Rock and roll!
Love that band. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
You're joking.
Nope. No joke. Trev says, I find it amusing that people don't realise that every stumble, splutter and excruciating eruption of verbal diarrhea of Johnson's speech was minutely choreographed and executed to perfection. It's his thing. He thinks it makes him adorable. Well, I would agree that that is his thing and that he thinks it makes him adorable. It has actually worked for him his entire life. All of that, all of that stuff. But he was melting at the CBI. I mean, that wasn't put on. He was actually floundering like a manatee in the shallows.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Ain't that right, Bodge? A manatee. And text, the poor people who come over on boats need to be let in and not left to die out there in the sea. Priti Patel seems to have a lot to answer for. I don't know anything about politics, but this just don't look right to me. What a bunch of idiots we got running this country, says Anne. Well, don't sit on the fence, Anne. Tell us what you think. And Pete emails, I'll fix your light. Which sounds very much like a threat. but I think it was in relation to me saying we were complaining yesterday, whinging and whining and moaning.
Stop whining.
Yesterday about stuff breaking and you can't fix it because I've got a light that you've got to jiggle the bulb around to get it to come on, and I'm fearful for my life because I don't want to be electrocuted to death. It would be nice to be able to have somebody fix it for me, but you can't. Who does that anymore? Well, apparently that bloke right there, he'll fix it for me. Croydon, hello, Simon.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me on the show.
Simon.
I wanted to discuss about the socks that was mentioned last night.
Yes.
What's the best socks to wear because of toes poking through and burning through the bottom of the socks. So what I do, I buy myself tube socks, and I buy 2 pairs at a time.
Yeah.
And I burn through the bottom of my sock, sew it back up. And I do this several times until such a point when the hole's too big to begin sewing back up again. So I put them pair of socks aside. I then wear the other pair of socks until they burn through and they're no good anymore. So then what I do is I cut off the toes on both pairs of socks and sew them together. So now I've got an extremely long pair of tube socks that run up to my knee. What I then do is I then burn through my socks again, and then I cut off the toes and then stitch them back together, and eventually my sock shrinks back down to normal size, and that's how I get round it, and my socks last an extremely long time.
Wow. That does sound like a lot of work.
It works, though. It saves the money. Definitely saves the money. The woolen socks, they do burn through very quickly. But
they do, yeah.
Yeah, but that's my way around it. So.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for the tip there, Simon. Can you put that in a diagram? You know, like what in stages. Show me how each stage works. Pop it on a postcard. Is it true that Steve Allen buys a pair of socks and then just throws them away once he's used them once? Because that's just mad. Does he actually do that, or is he kidding about that? You're not saving the planet, Steve. This tweet says, I could not quite gather the fact that the 5 p.m. bulletin was useless yet again, even more so not a female reporter in sight. What? What's that? What's that mean? The 5 p.m. bulletin. From where? Jerry emails, I just love a government who puts their country first in a crisis and takes full control of the situation and gives clear guidance to its people. Do you think we're ever likely to have such a government in power? Well, maybe eventually, once he goes.
Here we go. Okay.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Let's have... Who's been waiting the longest? Richmond. Hello, Phil.
Hey, Nick.
Phil.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to thank Simon, first of all. Just, what a great idea about the socks. I'm going to try that.
It does seem like a lot of effort, but, you know.
No, but it made me laugh. That's what it's all about.
Right.
The other thing you just mentioned was manatees. Now, I lived in Miami for 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to know manatees as they were, right? And I can tell you they're smarter and better looking than Boris Johnson. But that's just my opinion, okay? No, they're cool. They're cool cows. They're sea cows.
That is a valid opinion.
Yeah, it's just my opinion.
Right.
But I called you up because my ex-wife, she called me up, and I was on the telly, to be honest. And she says, you got to get back on Nick tonight. He's in good form. So I thought, well, I'll call you up and I'll tell you. When I watched, you just mentioned the 5 o'clock bulletin, right?
Yeah. What was that?
In Vietnam, we used to call it a 5 o'clock volley. And that was when the American colonels in Vietnam used to tell lies about how many people had died and stuff.
Right.
But anyway, that's another story. So I switched on at 5 o'clock to watch Bojo.
Oh, that bulletin. Is that what they were talking about?
That's
right.
what I guess, yeah. So I was watching it. I thought, okay, this is going to be good. He's going to tell us, this is serious illness here.
Yeah.
No, he starts off telling us about how great we are at the vaccine, blah, blah, blah. And then he answers journalist questions. And one of your other callers said, or you yourself said, you know, who are these people? Now, I'm a journalist, to be honest, and these were Z-list journalists. Why is that? There were 8 journalists in this room. Only one of them I'd ever heard of.
Right.
Maybe it's because it's Saturday and, you know, the big names were...
Yeah, all on, drunk, probably.
Yeah. No, I'll take that as a compliment.
Right.
But it was very embarrassing. And then he calls up his sidekicks, Whitty and Balance.
Right.
And they're, I'm sorry, Nick, but they're just yes men. They should be telling him this is a serious crisis.
Well, they probably are. I mean, you would think that they are telling him, but not on TV, because they presumably don't want to embarrass a person that could disinvite them from their position.
Well, why don't they get on? Why don't they stay off TV and advise him and say, this is the worst crisis we're probably going to go through? Tell the people. So then he waffles about wearing masks.
Yeah.
And now, as far as I can see, he says we should wear masks. I mean, either he comes out and says we must wear masks, right? I mean, I was in Waitrose, my local Waitrose in Richmond the other day. None of the staff were wearing masks. Very few customers wearing masks.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well, that staff aren't wearing masks. I mean, some places you go, they are. Like, I went to a couple of bars during the week, and they were. Even when they were and they were talking to me, and I was engaging them in conversation, you couldn't hear a word they were saying. It was like... Yeah. So I got them to pull the mask down while they were talking to me, so I could understand what they were going on about. But you're quite right. Supermarkets, they don't seem to do it anymore, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, and also, Nick, Waitrose, for example, I've got the official recommendation from them to their staff. It says wear masks at all times, although it's not, after it was mandatory,
right.
They said still wear your mask whenever possible. So, they talk about exemptions, but how many of Waitrose staff are exempt?
Right. Well, I don't know. Let's not pick on that one particular shop. I've seen it. I've seen it everywhere. But I think the message now is that you've got to wear a mask in a shop. So says Boris, the fellow who has serially failed to wear a mask in any given situation, including when he was sitting next to David Bloomin' Attenborough.
Exactly. But I just think my main concern, Nick, was he should have either said, well, he says Javid will do it tomorrow or something.
Right.
But unless you tell the great British public, in quotes, that it's illegal, you have to do it, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. Because they're British, they're different, they're better.
Well, see, I don't know. I mean, I think of all the countries on earth, we have really followed the rules pretty strictly up to this point. I mean, in other countries, like France, for instance, they've got protests on a daily basis about this, that. And I know that in France they have sort of stricter rules than we have. You've got to show your pass to get into a restaurant or whatever. But I think that we've been pretty good up to this point, don't you?
Can I? Well, I'll intervene there because... One thing Boris didn't mention when he said we're world leaders again. He used his favorite phrase. I think we're world leaders, according to him, in helping the third world. I mean, how funny is that? We colonized the third world. But,
that was our idea of helping. We barge in, we tell them no, you're doing it all wrong. We shoot anybody that raises an objection, and then we take all their stuff.
Exactly. But one thing he didn't mention was, and this is true, Nick, Spain and Portugal are far better off than us at this moment in terms of cases, deaths, and everything per capita.
Right.
I know because I was in Spain.
Well, I think per capita, we were the worst in Europe, with the possible exception of Belgium, which seems to be a weird outlier. Maybe they count differently. I mean, I know each country does count differently, but maybe Belgium really, really counts differently, because I don't know why they would be so particularly badly hit. But as far as per head of population, both deaths and economic hit, I think outside perhaps America, we're the worst in the world.
Yes, we are. We're world leaders in being bad.
Being bad, yeah.
So, but no, Spain. For example, Spain, masks are mandatory still, right? And that's why they're low. Portugal, We consider that a third world country.
Not really. Portugal? Third world?
The Portuguese now consider us. They laugh at us.
Laughing at us?
Yeah. Which is why I turn on to your program, because you make me laugh.
Right.
And I think laughter is the best medicine at this moment.
Right, laughter and sleep. Yeah, and whatever pills your doctor gives you. Always remember to take your pills, Phil. All right.
Take me pills, mate. Take me pills.
Yeah, especially if they're yellow ones. My favourite. All right, thanks a lot, Phil. 0345 6060 973. So in a bid to cling on to some of his popularity, some vestige of popularity, Bodger said, I'm pretty confident, or absolutely confident, that this Christmas will be considerably better than the last one, if that will do for the time being. You know, when questioned about whether we're going to be sent indoors. So he's pretty confident or absolutely confident, one of the two, that this Christmas will be considerably better than the last one, so he said. Well, I had a fine time last Christmas. I was doing the A to Z of 2020 on the air, on LBC. Can he be pretty or absolutely confident that my Christmas will be considerably better than the one I had in 2020? No, not confident. But he did say that travel would be restricted and that people coming back will have to get tests and all of that, you know. And I betcha that he'll be off to some sunny destination to suck up some freebie mansion time in a donor's hideaway this Christmas, and will join, when he comes back, a newly minted trial scheme that means that he, and he alone, won't have to get tested on the way back in. Anybody want to take that bet? No, you'd be throwing your money away. You might as well set fire to it. I mean, you're going to be losing it. You might as well use it for heat. Yes? 0345 6060 973. Look at the time. It's 11:30. The news headlines with Zora Suleiman.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbott.
You're wondering what it's all about, and I can't tell you because I don't know myself.
Linda mentions, or texts rather, no mention of schools at the briefing. Students should wear masks. Under 18s don't have to isolate if they come into contact with a COVID-positive person. Madness, says Linda. Well, what is mad is that you've got to wear a mask in shops, but you don't have to in a hospitality environment. It doesn't make any sense at all. Either you do or you don't. Either it's serious or it isn't. Which is it? Decide. Select. Darryl says, during last night's show, I accidentally fell asleep. But today I did my homework because I'm a good boy or girl. And I listened to the podcast of the whole show. However, I noticed that at one point you referred to our dear leader as Donny. Are you okay? No, Darryl, I'm not okay. And, by the way, if you do feel sleepy and you can't get to the end of this show, which runs till 1 a.m, then do remember that it is available as a podcast. We squirt it up the internet. We take the news and the ads out, which means it takes less time to listen to, you'll use less electricity, and you won't have to sell your house to pay your fuel bill. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Ask for it by name on an internet near you. Nick Abbott, the whole show. Or just do an internet search on my name, Nick Abbott, and podcasts, and the 3 that I do will become instantly available to you. Like magic. Clapham. Hello, Anne.
Hiya. All I want to say is, was it, I'm not absolutely 100% sure, but was it 2 years ago when this COVID started that Boris and Priti Patel said that they was going to stop people coming over in the boats? Wasn't that 2 years ago?
Well, I don't think it's got anything to do with COVID, does it? But
well, no, nothing to do with COVID, but
right.
I'm saying that when they got in, they said that they was going to stop people coming over in the
yes,
boat.
We're going to take back control of our borders. That's what they promised. Yes.
That's it. Now, that's not obviously been done.
No.
But the thing is, it's terrible what happened to them people, but what they've got to realise is that, you know, they're coming here, they're giving them money, they're giving them mobile phones, they're going into a hotel. But we've got a lot of our soldiers and ex-soldiers that are living on the streets with PTSD. Why are they not helping them?
Well, it's a different issue. There's two separate issues there, and I think it's an absolute outrage how our ex-service people are treated.
So do I.
They sign an agreement with the people of this country that they will put their lives on the line for us, and by extension, we should take care of them for the rest of their lives, particularly if they are injured, either physically or mentally. But we don't seem to hold up our end of the bargain.
No.
To the shame of this whole country.
It's disgusting.
It is.
I think Boris has lost the plot, and I think with these ones that are coming over in the boats, in the dinghies, whatever, I think they may as well just send cruise ships there, put them on the cruise ships and take them for a cruise all around the world. Because they're getting... I do, honestly, and I think a lot of people...
What if they don't want to go on a cruise?
Well, they might as well. They're getting everything else from the country.
No, and I think you're exaggerating just a little bit.
I'm not.
£5 a day, and no ability to work, and put through this sort of brutal process that they have to go through to prove that they are actually genuine refugees. It's not a walk in the park. It's not as it is described in whatever paper it is that you read that in. And £5 a day, it just ain't. And by the way, the vast majority of the people who do go through that brutal routine where they have to prove who they are and why they're here, they pass. Now, this government doesn't want them to pass, but they do anyway, which means they are genuine refugees fleeing horror that is unimaginable to us, safe, comfortable, doughy Brits. They are fleeing things that we can't even begin to imagine. So a short trip across the Channel is as nothing compared to a life under the Taliban, for instance. And they don't get all of the money, and they don't get like a perfect hotel accommodation. They don't get free houses, and they don't get all of this stuff that they're trying to persuade you is true about those people. They're not vermin. It's not an infestation. It's not a swarm. But anyway, I wish you all the best. Thanks a lot, Anne. Hardly anybody comes here. It's the thin end of the 80 million displaced people. Almost no one at all gets here. And yet, the papers who want to sell newspapers, and one of the best ways of doing it is to tell people that, you're in danger from others. Be afraid. And they want to make you, perpetually on the edge of your seat, spotting foreigners. Dinghy spotting. Look, there's another one. We're full. This close to Jesus' birthday as well. Eugene text, northeast of Scotland, must be a suburb of Glasgow. Northeast. I don't think so. Edward says, you can always be relied upon to restore sanity back into people's lives. Who, me? By the way, your show is educational, and my maths have improved since following your method of adding up. 2 and 2 is 5. Yeah, for further details, let's do counting with Zahawi.
And 1, 2,
yes,
11.
Oh, close. Better luck next time. Chris says, I went to Skegness last week and I went into the arcades and they had those teddy grab machines. Every time I put my money in and tried to hook myself a cute cuddly reindeer, your sound effect, thank you, kept playing. Yes. Yeah, I noticed that when I went into the pier in Brighton. You walk in the front door and you hear, thank you. Yeah. I kept saying to my friend, well, good manners don't cost nothing, do they?
Be polite.
He looked at me like I was completely mad. He was probably right, says Chris. Let's have a call in... oh, blimey, I haven't done the cat thing yet. See, this is why the podcast is good. Because if you can't hang around for the cat thing, if your eyes are getting droopy and you just can't take it anymore, then you can listen to it on the podcast. Have I mentioned the podcast?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I did. A couple of times, yeah. Nick Abbot, the whole show. Beverly in East Yorkshire. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick. Yeah, few bits and pieces.
You mentioned the war on drugs earlier. I've not picked that up anywhere. Are you going to come back on that later in the evening?
Well, I'm running out of time now, but yes, I guess I'll have to. Yeah, I'll try and squeeze it in, yes.
Don't forget the cats.
Right.
I was looking at the sort of crufts. You know what cruft is?
Crufts,
the dog thing.
The dog thing, yeah.
Well,
the dog show, yeah.
Yeah, well, if they uninvited Cruella de Vil, it wouldn't be much of a surprise, would it? And yet people are sort of surprised or horrified that the European Union have uninvited Priti Patel.
Uninvited Priti Patel, yeah. Just for my own safety and security and mental well-being, at any future event that I hold, I'm always going to, particularly and especially, uninvite Priti Patel. Just in case. Just in case. Always better to be safe than sorry.
And the other thing you were talking about last night is that if we'd known about this this new invisible menace from South Africa, why didn't we do something about it? So it was so urgent that they had to have a press conference tonight with Boris, the Ken Dodd impersonator at it. And then they announced that we're going to have to do masks. And when's that going to happen? Well,
later.
Sometime next week.
Yeah, later. Yeah, it's always later with these people. Like, there's an emergency right now, and we're going to do something about it. Well, let's not get carried. There's no rush.
Absolutely, it's bizarre.
What did you just say? Whoops! He forgot where he was just for a moment there. I think I saved you from that, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Yeah, the light's flashing. We are secure.
Affirmative.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Mike. Better luck next time. 0345 6060 973. Tom tweets, we've had no power since about 4 a.m. But you know us, we never complain.
Stop whining.
Yes, there's still people with no power. God, what a nightmare. It's blooming freezing outside and inside if you've got no power. Wow. That's terrible. Waz texts, say your name. I helped my mum do a blood pressure reading the other day and I accidentally put it on the wrong way with the wire facing up. Her arm nearly exploded, said Waz. Does that happen? I don't think so. Really? The wire because the wire's supposed to go down your arm, isn't it? But it went up her arm. And her arm nearly exploded. They put those things on and like the doctor will have either one or the other type. He'll have the one where he blows it up with this thing he's got in his hand. It's like squeezy ball thing. Or it's an electric one. And how many times I've had that on my arm and I'm thinking, I just stopped myself from saying out loud, excuse me, this is getting way too tight. Your machine's broken. Help! But you know me, I never complain.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Mike says, that woman with a freshly made bed that smells like a cloud and and loves baked beans with grated cheese sounds like my kind of wife. Is she available, says Mike. I tell you what, Mike, I'll pass her number on to you. How does that sound? I won't do anything of the sort. I don't think she said that it smells like a cloud. Because what does a cloud smell like? Well, it depends what it's a cloud of.
Disgusting.
Of course, yeah. Feels like a cloud, I think, was the thrust of what it was that she was saying. Mark says, you talking wind again, Nick? Not about the latest government COVID con. Trying to scare everyone again before Christmas. You talking wind again, Nick? It's not wind. It's the Omicron variant. There seems to be... hey, have I done a break yet? I haven't done the break yet, have I? Oh, no. This again. Haven't done the break yet? Why aren't you paying attention? All right, I'll do the. At least we've got an hour. I can maybe squeeze in Boris's new war on drugs. Oh, for crying out loud, a war on drugs! Can you believe that?
No.
That's what they've come up with to distract us from the chaos of this clown show that we've got going on here. And there's this new super variant.
Oh, no.
I want to do that. And also the cat thing. Don't forget to remind me not to forget to do the cat thing.
Nick Abbott on LBC.
This is absolute tosh.
0345 6060 973. Bruce emails the meteorological office's The meteorological is pretty hard. Never mind about the rare red weather. The rare red. You say it.
Rare red weather warning.
The meteorological office's rare red weather warning. See, not completely useless. Is really rarely reliable. Oh God. You get points if you get the words in the right order, says Bruce.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Extra points for getting it in order.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Yeah, I know that. John texts, why isn't it called the French Channel? Well, that's a good question. Excellent question, John. I've got, because it's, oh, never mind. Nairn in the Highlands. Hello, Sheila.
Hi.
Sheila.
Hi.
Sheila.
Hello.
Yes, Sheila. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually living in the Highlands, but obviously I wasn't born here.
Not obviously.
Right. Topics.
Yeah.
So.
What's the weather been like in the Highlands, by the way?
Absolutely tragic.
Awful.
Snow, gale force winds, but
blimey.
beautiful, not polluted.
Is it?
And probably the whole of the Highlands hasn't had as much fatalities or as many fatalities, correct, myself, as Islington. So there's probably been more fatalities in Islington as a small borough in London than there has been in the Highlands.
Okay.
In terms of COVID.
Oh, COVID. Right.
Yeah,
No,
well, yeah,
I'm talking about the weather. The weather. What's the weather been like?
The weather is absolutely glorious in Nairn.
What?
We've had snow. We're by the sea. It's absolutely beautiful.
Snow?
But yes, but it's been cold.
Yeah. Sounds awful.
It's not. It's absolutely beautiful if you get snow in the sunshine and not snow in London in pollution.
Well, I suppose, yeah, snow in the sunshine. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, deep and crisp and even.
And then we don't get tube strikes either.
Right, blimey, you are very, very down on London there, Sheila. I think
I should be.
You're like a London expat.
I used to live there for. Well, I'm not one of those clawing the way back from Spain, am I? That forgot to apply for residency.
You know, it sounds like you're. It's like an ex-smoker. An ex-smoker.
I'm smoking. I was an ex-smoker until I had surgery recently, and now I'm smoking more than I ever did.
Okay, that's probably a bad idea. But an ex-smoker is always somebody who just rails against smoking, and an ex-Londoner is somebody who rails against London.
I still work in London. I had an accident.
What, you commute?
Well, you can do. You can be there in
from
80
the Highlands.
Minutes. You can be there on EasyJet in 80 minutes. Northern Powerhouse. It extends further.
Yeah, but the plane trip might take 80 minutes, but it's 3 hours in the in the airport to begin with, and then another hour trying to get out of the airport on the other end.
Not necessarily. Up here, if you've checked in, you can check. Checking in is really relatively simple. Checking out the other end is quite difficult.
Yeah, nightmare, I would imagine. Yeah.
However, I would like to talk about. A few things. Only if you've got time.
No.
But one of them is Pretty Patel. One of them is Pretty Patel.
All of the time has been taken up talking about the weather and the snow and the sunshine.
You decided that.
I see.
Look, it's
my
your
fault.
Station.
Right.
Look, it's my party. I'll cry if I want to. So you are in control. But Pretty Patel is not fit for purpose. There needs to be an international agreement. On how we treat people that are fleeing war-torn areas.
There is. The UN...
But Stanley and his sidekick that fathers so many children he doesn't admit to all of them. Well, they don't wear masks. They don't really abide by international agreements, do they? They don't even abide by laws.
Breaking of the law seems to be their thing, yeah, while telling everybody else to obey all the laws that they've just broken. Yeah.
You know we're going to close down.
No, I don't.
Probably
I don't know.
Christmas.
I don't know anything of the sort.
No, nor do I, and I wouldn't profess to, but past experience will indicate that probably him and Miss Simmons will go to somewhere like the Seychelles on one of the peerages sort of, gifts over Christmas and let everybody else suffer. Yeah. It happens. It's happened before.
I've already said this. I bet you he'll be sucking up a freebie from in some donor's mansion in a
British Virgin Isles,
sunny hideaway somewhere,
Saudi Arabia,
somewhere where it's very free to those that can afford it, very expensive to those that can't.
He'll probably go to Qatar. If you look at Bayern Munich as a football team today, Bayern Munich have absolutely said, we're not supporting you.
He's not going to Qatar.
No, he wouldn't dare. They wouldn't accept him, the oath.
I think they probably would. But anyway, Sheila, it's been confrontational, I think. I think that life in the Highlands hasn't really smoothed out your mood yet. Relax. You're probably the loudest and shoutiest person there. Everybody else is like relaxed and virtually horizontal, I bet. I bet life is slow, except when you're around. But I do wish you all the best. Thanks a lot, Sheila, for whatever that was. RJ says, apparently you can posh beans and cheese on toast for £5. £5? You can posh beans and cheese on toast for £5. What on earth does that mean? You mean it costs £5 in a restaurant to have beans and cheese on toast? You can buy posh beans and cheese on toast for £5. Where? Jack says, if Colin thinks the fish in the channel are ours, that must mean the migrants are ours too. Well, that's an interesting thought, ain't it? Yeah, if the fish are ours, how come if everything underneath the water is ours, how come things on top of the water aren't ours too? Good point there, Jack. Edward texts, I like mackerel, I just don't like Macron. Cute. And Zorba the Greek texts, why has it jumped from Delta to Omicron? What happened to Epsilon, Zeta, Eta, Theta, Iota, etc.? Says Zorba the Greek. Well, you should know, mate. I have no idea. Like I said before, it's all Greek to me. Not a clue. Mick says, who knew in my 50s I'd be studying the Greek alphabet? I'd like to call the next mutant Alexa. The machines that rulers would melt down. Well, that's a good point. I mean, have you just tried chanting their name over and over and over again to see what happens? They might explode. Or they might whip out some previously unseen facility and take you out. It's possible. I mean, have you ever prized the lid off one to see what's inside? Of course not. Anything could be in there. Right, now, I want to do the Omicron thing. I want to do the cat psychopath test. And I need to do the Boris Johnson crackdown on law and order. They're going to... Their next thing, the Tories' next thing, is a crackdown on law and order. Yeah. I mean, the nerve. So... I don't know whether I'll be able to get to it, but I'm going to do my best. I'll do my best. 0345 6060973, text 84850, email nicka@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Hello. Anybody care what this guy thinks?
No!
Zach texts, that posh beans on toast is a new ready meal from M&S. It's a baguette with beans and cheese sold as a microwave meal for £5. Right. Well, that seems a lot. But it's not just food. Des emails, the French are conspiring to send unwanted people to my country. You support anyone who's not British, says Des, who's spelt the word who's wrong. You're an idiot, Des, and I mean that in a nice way. Bruff, Derek.
Hi, Nick.
Derek.
My main point was going to be about what would turn the country into, but just before that, I think I've worked out the reason why Johnson was talking about making car noises and, talking about Peppa Pig the other day. I think it proves that Wilfred is the first child that has had anything to do with in his younger years, because that's the sort of thing that you do when you've got a young family, innit? Is make car noises.
Yeah, make baby noises. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then to entertain them. So I think it proves that he's just finally woke up to that one. But I think going back to the COVID briefs today, this was in the news sort of thing. I think what they've done, they've looked at the polls and they thought, when was the polls highs? When was the poll high? When was I the most popular person in the country? Mm-hmm. And it was when they was doing the COVID briefs. So I think it's all, all a bit cynical. Do you know what I mean? That they just want to deviate and deflect from his lack of empathy or capability or
ability.
By introducing the COVID briefs again. And then finally, the thing that I was rung up for was after listening to the Daily Mail reader earlier on a few calls ago, which basically was on about the £40 a day or something, and a mobile phone and a hotel room.
£40 a week, not a day, a week.
Yeah, a week. That was all in the Daily Mail, I think, yesterday, I think. And I think, I wonder what, if Johnson, Farage and the right-wing press, I wonder if they're really proud of themselves for what they turn this country into, which is a country of intolerance, a hatred of people who are fleeing from persecution and seeking, safety from wars that really, like Syria, Libya, Iraq, all these countries, Afghanistan.
All these countries that we had a big hand in destabilising. Yeah.
Exactly. And, you've got to take ownership, haven't you, as a country. We've got to take ownership of these things. You cannot just, basically say, it's now to do with
nothing to do with us, yeah. And this sort of story that they keep selling us, that all of the people in the world are all trying to get here, whereas it's just a tiny minority, the tiniest trickle of the most desperate people in the world are trying to get here for one reason or another, that they speak English or they have family here or they've been persuaded that we're nice people. Which seems like a stretch considering how we're reacting to them. But you know what? The newspapers and the various people that you've mentioned so far, money is what they're making from it. There's a lot of money to be made in making people frightened of an invasion of others. It's all about the money, honey. All right, thanks a lot, Derek. Pretty depressing, this close to Jesus' birthday, because there's a lot of people who do claim to be religious, who claim to, act on their faith, who are about the least religious and kind and caring people that you could possibly imagine. Quite a few of them are dotted about the cabinet. I don't know how they got the nerve, really, to quote the Bible when their every action is the exact opposite of what Jesus would do, and more in tune, actually, with what Donald Trump would do.
Oh, shut up!
Exactly. Pretty sickening, actually, but, never mind. That's just people. Lucy texts, don't forget the cat story. Yeah, I'm going to squeeze it in at the end, or, as soon as it is, as soon as I can. Trust me, Lucy. You trust me, don't you?
No.
Not really, no. So this, see, the problem is, people just keep calling me. How do they get my number? Regent's Park, hello, Vance.
Hello, Nick. You keep me sane, Every weekend I sort of have to have my fix of the Nick Abbott show.
Well, thanks.
Nick, one trivial point, first of all. You were mentioning just now that there's going to be a huge industry in smart toys for pets. It's not unreasonable, We had a cat called Elvis Jr., and whenever we went away for a weekend, we'd come back on Monday morning, and my chess pieces, we have a chess set on the coffee table, my chess pieces would be scattered all over the carpet.
Yeah.
And then I decided, okay, I'll use my phone, and I put it on speaker. So every evening that we were away, I would call Elvis and have a 2-minute chat with him. And then when we got back on the Monday morning, my chess pieces were immaculately on the board.
Wow.
He hadn't fiddled with them at all. And from then onwards, he didn't play with my chess set.
Could you see the cat when you were talking to it?
No, I couldn't.
Right.
But I was pretty certain he heard it because it was on speaker, and we have only a small flat, so he must have heard it. So I think it worked okay.
Well, I like the sound of that. I mean, it does sound, because I don't know about cats so much, but dogs certainly, they get abandonment issues, don't they? I mean, a dog doesn't ever know that you're coming back. That's why it freaks out when you leave the house every day. Because it doesn't know that you're coming back, and it just goes berserk when you do return. It's like, you're back.
Yeah, that's right. And cats freak out too. At least it saved my chess set, so
right.
It worked. The other thing, Nick, if I may, the Omicron variant. Gordon Brown has been really vocal in the past 2 or 3 days, saying that the emergence of this new variant is because we in the first world haven't waived our patent rights over vaccine manufacture, and we should have done this ages ago.
Yeah, we have enough vaccines to vaccinate the entire world twice, and yet we just threw away 600,000 of them, something like that, because we didn't use them. We were storing them. They went past their best buy date, and we chucked them away. We should have been giving them to the third world.
That's right. And in fact, the South African public health authorities admitted that they have 158 days worth of vaccine in their fridges.
Right.
So that wasn't the cause of the Omicron variant emerging at all. In fact, just to take another 30 seconds...
It's a lack of take-up. There's resistance.
It's a lack of take-up, but there's also another cause, and that is the really poor public health in, for example, the Gauteng district, which includes Johannesburg. I mean, there are lots of really poor, unhygienic townships, particularly in Joburg.
Right.
I've been to Soweto twice, and, there's no running water in those houses, and all the water that effluent runs down an open drain in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
The ANC government have promised but failed to give these people decent housing and decent sanitation. That's what's needed before, farming out vaccine manufacture.
Right.
So I think we've got to get our priorities right.
Well, we don't have our priorities right, and we never will, because we're essentially selfish people, and we put ourselves first. And even when we are utterly replete, even when we've stuffed ourselves to the point that we can't move, we still would refuse to give anybody a crumb off our table.
Yeah, indeed. And our great leader leads the way, doesn't he?
He certainly does, yeah. All right, he waddles ahead of us, yeah. Thanks a lot, Vance. 0345 6060 973. I still can't believe he managed to squeeze into those rides at Peppa Pig Land.
Peppa Pig World. Peppa Pig World it has...
Yes?
Peppa Pig?
Peppa Pig is the right answer. Let's have Oxford. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, you cracked me up by talking about Peppa Pig, but that's not what I want to talk about.
Right.
This evening I've been driving home from a concert. I'm a keen amateur musician.
Mm-hmm.
I've been driving home from a concert, listening to you talking about Peppa Pig.
Yes.
But
what do you
my
play?
point is,
What do you play?
I'm a classical musician. I play the violin and the oboe.
Right.
And it's such a joy to be playing again with live musicians.
Yeah.
And to be giving concerts again.
Yes.
It's just such a joy.
Now,
And
can I ask you a question about the instruments that you've chosen?
Yes.
An oboe. That's the big stand-up bass thing, right?
No.
What's an oboe?
So it sounds. So I don't know if there's a piece of music called Peter and the Wolf.
Peter and the Wolf, yeah.
The oboe sounds a bit like a duck. So
A bit like a duck? That doesn't sound very good.
No, it doesn't. No, it cuts through the orchestra, and it has a reed which sticks out the top. It has a double reed.
Right, so it's a wind instrument.
Yeah. It's
I gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
Can you believe that people? Because they call a double bass just a double bass. That's the only word. That's the only name for it, right? Like a stand-up bass.
Yeah.
Why on earth would you choose that as your instrument? I mean,
I have no idea. I prefer the
biggest
oboe and I
thing.
prefer the violin.
Yeah, well, you can put those in a little case and carry them with you.
Actually, people can. We were discussing this evening. People can put their double basses in minis, so it is possible.
In minis, yeah.
Yeah.
But you see them on the tube and in on the trains, or at least you used to when there was such a thing as concerts. Why would anybody, given the choice of all of the instruments in the orchestra, choose something that's bigger than they are?
I think people like are suited to different instruments, and yeah, people take to different instruments.
Yeah.
Like
you know what the best one is?
The violin and the oboe, because yeah.
Yeah, you know what the best one is?
What?
The best instrument to choose?
Go on.
The piano, because you don't have to take it with you. It's always there when you get there.
No, but it's not very sociable, so you'd end up being stuck at home on your own, sort of, yeah. Unless you're really good and get to be a concert pianist, so you don't get the social side, so.
Oh, okay.
But no, it's good for reading music and learning chords, so 50-50.
Okay. And what were you playing tonight?
It was with a string orchestra, so we were doing lots of string music, like the Bach Brandenburg Concerto and Elgar and a bit of, other nice string pieces.
Nice string pieces?
Rock and roll!
Right, sounds great.
Well, no, not quite rock and roll.
How did it go down?
No, really well. We had a really good audience, yeah.
Well, isn't it great to be back? I mean, finally, people,
to be back.
You're back.
It's such a joy. I'm smiling and sort of happiness and joy.
Grinning like a Cheshire cat, yeah. High on life. Excellent to hear. Thanks a lot, Leslie. 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC.
Nick Abbott on LBC.
And I can't stand him.
Right, so let's do this super variant then. This super variant is getting all the headlines, and here under a headline which says, "Why is it so scary?" The Mail says, the Botswana COVID variant, described by experts as the worst strain ever, has all the worrying mutations from the previous versions of the virus, plus many more that could make it the most infectious and vaccine-resistant one so far.
Oh, no.
The super strain has acquired the mutations of Delta, which made that variant so transmissible that it became world dominant in months. And the new variant also includes the vaccine-resistant alteration seen on Beta, another strain of concern that emerged in South Africa and was thought to be the best at escaping the immune system until now. It also contains a dropout mutation that helped the Alpha variant take off in the UK last winter. In total, the new super strain has 32 mutations on its spike protein, more than any variant before it and twice as many as Delta. And we hear all that and we nod sagely as though we have any idea what any of that means. I'll sum it up for you. Meanwhile, the governor of New York on Friday declared a state of emergency as COVID transmission reached rates not seen since April 2020.
Warning, warning.
Yeah. The governor of New York insisted that the troubling new variant of COVID first emerged in Botswana. That first emerged in Botswana is coming. It's coming.
Emergency, everybody to get from street. Emergency, everybody to get from street.
Her warning came as a leading epidemiologist told the Daily Mail that the new strain was deeply troubling, urging tougher travel restrictions and saying the virus could spark pandemic 2.0. Oh,
no.
Oh, no. 2.0? So that's the bad news. And the good news is in the exact same papers. Apparently there's no reason for alarm. Everything is fine. That was the information under the headline, "Why is it so scary?" In the very same paper on the very same day, under the headline, "Why it's not scary," is this. The new COVID variant is not a disaster, and some people may be hugely overstating the situation, according to a SAGE advisor. That's capital S, SAGE. Not that he's smart, but he probably is smart. You know, he has wisdom. Microbiologist Professor Callum Semple urged calm, insisting that vaccines are still likely to protect you from severe disease. You might get a snuffle or a headache or a filthy cold, but your chance of coming into hospital or intensive care or dying are greatly diminished by the vaccine and still will be going into the future. Well, that's great. And that was what was missing from the panicked coverage of this thing, what with, graphs and diagrams and mock-up pictures of what it looks like under the microscope, which seem to have been drawn deliberately to make us freak out. It looks terrifying. But then we heard from scientists in South Africa. And today was the first time that I actually heard somebody talk about not the potential for disaster, but what it's actually like if you catch it. What do people go through when they catch this new terrifying variant? And the people, the doctors, the scientists in South Africa said it's not much. They said it's just a mild infection, won't make you feel too bad. Nothing really, mustn't grumble. Well, it would have been nice to hear that right up front, wouldn't it? Instead of making us panic and go inside and hide in a corner. I mean, that news was a little bit late, but we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Asked what other measures he thought were advisable, microbiologist Professor Callum Semple said that he was in favour of compulsory face masks in shops and on public transport and hand washing, and you know what, I can live with all that. Professor Semple also said that while it may not be possible to stop the variant coming into the UK, it is still important to delay its arrival. Well, slight problem there, as it's here already, because, as usual, we just open the door and let it in a repeat of the last time that Bodger and his cabinet of curiosities allowed the last variant in, and the one before that, and the one before that. You know, if the variant had come over on a dinghy, they'd have called out the gunboats. But as it came in on a plane from South Africa, it was just waved through. Come this way. Feel free to mingle. I couldn't believe that it took like 2, 3, 4 days for somebody to get on the TV and the radio to tell us what it was going to be like if we actually caught this thing, rather than just making us fearful for our lives just at the very idea of it. Information. We need information. Well, you won't get it. You are number 2. I am number 6.
86%, 5 million, and of course, over 50%.
And Chris says, I went to Skegness last week and I went into the... Oh, no, I've read that. Read that one. Wow, I am way ahead of schedule. How many have I got left to read? Are you kidding? I'll never get through that. How many pages is this? This is like about 18 pages of tweets and texts and so on. I'll never get through all that. You can hear me scrolling through. It takes forever. Lucy says, don't forget the cat story. Yeah, all right, Lucy. Stop badgering me. Chris says, I watched Mr. Peppa Pig earlier with Chris Whitty, and apart from the masks, it left me thinking, is this a build-up to Christmas cancelled and schools closed? Well, not if it's just a mild infection, no. See, what does concern me is that this eventually is going to turn into something really serious. Because, I mean, I don't want to add to the freakery, the freak-outery, but it's been pretty benign so far. I mean, I know that it's created, millions of dead people, but if only 1% of the population that actually catches it dies, then it's fairly benign. If it had been MERS or SARS, then we were looking at 15 or 30% of the people that catch it die, then this would be a completely different world. Wouldn't it? And I am slightly concerned that might actually be just around the corner, but let's cross our fingers and hope not, eh? Altex, did the French-Canadian puppet company do a press conference this evening? That's in reference to something that we had earlier on. And if you missed any of that, by the way, then let me remind you again that this show is available as a podcast. We squirt it up the internet almost as soon as it's finished. If you do a search on Nick Abbott, The Whole Show, then the podcast will become apparent as though by magic. And you can thank me later. No, wait, I've changed my mind. You can thank me now.
Thank you.
Gaz tweets, there is certainly something in the air tonight, ghostly, like the tap in the kitchen just turned on by itself. Yeah, I had a moment right at the beginning of the show where it felt like somebody whispered in my ear. Like there was a presence in the room. Not presents, presence. I get no presents, only a presence. Gary says this new Omicron variant sounds like something out of the Transformers. I think somebody said that last night. I've got no idea what about the Transformers. I tried to watch one of those films. I got about 5 minutes in and I thought, yeah, this is not a program for me. I just cannot watch this. It's just chaos. It's just noise, visual and oral. Archie says, I absolutely love mackerel. I have a childhood memory of seeing my father and his friends return to a bay in a rowing boat after a fishing trip. It was very low in the water because it was literally full of mackerel. The whole village had some and loved them. I seriously doubt that. Mackerel? I haven't bought any mackerel in a good long while, but the only reason I bought it was because I was persuaded that it was good for me. Almost literally holding my nose while I ate it. It was like taking medicine. I'd have it for lunch, some hot smoked mackerel. Not hot, as in, I think they smoked it hot and it arrived cold on my plate. I mean, imagine cooking that stuff. God, the stink. You'd have to burn your house down, wouldn't you? You'd never get that smell out. Mackerel, no thank. It's a no from me, and furthermore... No. But thanks for asking. 0345 6060 973. Look at the time, it's 12:30. The news headlines on LBC with Zora Sullivan.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbott.
Everything is going extremely well.
Almost. Joan emails, I think Boris must be dethroned now before he can drag us down any further. I do believe he wakes up each morning and works out who he can upset that day. Bodge.
I can't comment on that.
It's a yes from him. Phil says, any chance of deporting me and the missus to Portugal? We are both born and bred in Britain. Slap a stamp on your rear, Phil, and see how far you get. You could post yourself there. Oliver texts, you're a complete letdown. What? Couldn't sleep all night wondering if my cat Bruno is a psycho and whether it wants to murder me. I didn't want to Google it, so I can hear it from you. Please tell us, and tell us now, not in a while or after the break. Thanks, says Oliver. Oh, all right then. There is now a way to find out whether your cat is a psychopath. And the answer is probably yes. Psychologists studied the relationship between thousands of cats and their owners to develop a detailed questionnaire that you can use to analyse your pet. To be clear, you answer the questionnaire, not your pet. It comes in the form of 46 statements, with owners rating how well each statement describes their pet. Examples include, but are not limited to, my cat torments their prey rather than killing it straight away. I thought all cats did that. I thought partly the reason that they did that was that they're full. I mean, they're not really hungry, are they, cats? Because they just get fed constantly. I mean, if it's not tinned food, it's little biscuits and treats and, all the rest of it. They're not in want of food, your fat cat. I also think that perhaps because they haven't had to hunt for a living, because we go to the supermarket for their living, we bring home their food for them so they don't have to. They don't acquire that sort of killer instinct. In their tiny cat-like brain, there's something that tells them that they want to, attack a mouse or whatever it might be. But there's nothing to impel them to actually kill it because they don't need the food. So I think it looks to us as though they're being cruel, but it's just they've got halfway through the process and then get a bit bored because they're not really interested in eating it. Now, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but it's also entirely possible that what comes out of a kitty cat tin is preferable than eating a skinny little mouse. I don't know that that's true, but it doesn't prevent it from being a fact. So that's one example. My cat torments their prey rather than killing it straight away. Now, of course, if this was a questionnaire about a human being, then that would be a pretty good indication that they're a psychopath if they tormented their prey rather than killing it straight away. Of course, if they killed it straight away, that would also mean that they were a psychopath. That is also true. It puts the lotion in the basket, or it gets the hose again. Psychopath. My cat torments their prey rather than killing it straight away. That is one of the examples of 46 statements which you can either agree or disagree on, depending on whether, to determine whether your cat's a psycho. Or, my cat likes to be enormously cruel and then blames the dog for anything bad that results from it. Does that sound familiar? Yes. My cat is another one. My cat vocalizes loudly for no apparent reason. Yeah. It's beginning to seem like not plan. It's not theory. It's oh God, I hate when this happens. It's beginning to seem like I can't finish that sentence. Oh no! Damn it! It's beginning to seem like. What word am I looking for?
I don't know.
We don't know. What are you asking us for? Here's another one. My cat is very excitable and goes into overdrive and becomes uncoordinated.
Contact tracing.
Uncoordinated, you say? It's beginning to seem like, whatever the word is that I'm trying to think of, but I still can't think of it. Not plan, it's like a series of events that coincide, whatever that word is. I'm becoming uncoordinated myself. The results will help to measure the cat's level of meanness. Traits such as a lack of empathy, callous aggression, disinhibition, which is problems with behavioural restraint, and boldness, which is a measure of social dominance, and low levels of fear.
Here we go. Okay.
It also measures the animal's level of unfriendliness towards people and towards other pets.
I think he's betraying a quite stupefying ignorance.
It all begins to look like a pattern. It's called the Cat Tri Plus, this test. It's the first ever tool available to measure psychopathy in cats. This is according to researchers from Liverpool University and Liverpool John Moores University. Lead researcher Rebecca said, "We believe that, like any other personality trait, psychopathy is on a continuum where some cats will score more highly than others. She says it's likely that all cats have an element of psychopathy, as it would have once been helpful for their ancestors in terms of acquiring resources, for example, food, territory, and mating opportunities."
Yeah. Wait a minute.
The team hopes it will help improve their cat owner help improve cat owner relationships, and by extension reduce the number of pets that end up in shelters or being put down. Oh, I think there's some owners that think that are thinking seriously of putting their pet out to fend for itself. Lead researcher Rebecca said, a psychologist at Liverpool University, she said the questionnaire can be used by owners or vets to highlight undesirable behaviours and make improvements to the cat's environments that suit their character. A cat that has a high score on the boldness scale may benefit from tall scratching posts, she says. Or stripper posts, eh, Bodge?
I can't comment on that.
I think we've identified a pattern. That's the word I was going for. It's a pattern. Let's see. Where am I? Matthew emails, that Jurassic MP who thinks there are too many women on TV needs a second job. He has too much time to spare in his MP role. Well, that's a good point. Give him something else to do. On that subject, Lorna texts, while Nick Fletcher was spouting his rubbish, a couple of other MPs in the House said, "Hear, hear." Yeah. Well, they probably weren't paying any attention to what he was saying. They were quite likely sending pictures of their area to their youthful assistants.
Disgusting.
Here. Puh. You know, all of that. Marion says, I reckon that Nick Fletcher's voice sounds like Gavin Williamson's. There's no hope for us. I haven't actually heard him speak. He sounds like this. I didn't think anybody sounded like that. We're still not missing you, Gav, in case you were wondering. Cindy says, I can't watch blood and gore. Give me something with humour like Gremlins or Cats and Dogs. Drama or thrillers with Navy SEALs, etc. Okay. Duly noted. Thanks for the information there, Cindy. Where did that come from? No idea. This is my own show and I've got no idea what's going on. Simon says, what could be an even worse replacement for Bojo? There is a certain self-declared nutcase announcing his political comeback.
I'm a nutcase.
Who are you talking about? There are no emojis for shock horror, says Simon. There must be. But if you're over the age of 12, you should not be using them. Stop communicating in cartoons, people. He's announcing his political comeback.
Nigel Farage is not fit and proper to be in government.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Come on, we're running late!
David texts, I think dads like to take their children to Legoland to remind them of their own childhood playing with bricks. Perhaps some dads go to Peppa Pig World to remind them of their time in the Bullingdon Club.
Peppa Pig World. Peppa Pig World is...
Yes.
Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig! This one says, I'm slightly concerned with your obsession with the former President Trump, when the current US president's nonsensical rambling is just as hilarious and concerning. No, it isn't. Because Donald Trump was, just flat out evil.
Oh, shut up!
And the current one is just flat out old, that's all. I mean, at least the current one is acting in the interests of the people rather than him personally. That's the difference. But you can't tell people that because, they've already made their mind up and, there's a certain demographic that you just can't reach. That demographic.
I love the poorly educated.
That one right there. Vince says, well, that's it then. Bojo de Pfeffel, I still don't know how to pronounce that. Is the P silent, says Vince. Pfeffel. I think you've got to do them both at the same time. Bojo de Pfeffel, our beloved Prime Minister, has promised that Christmas won't be ruined, so given his previous record, it is therefore going to be completely screwed. Start making different plans, because I am, says Vince. He's made his mind up. And Steve says, if MP Fletcher is concerned about poor male role models, I suggest he look at the Tory front bench and our PM. Yes. Yes. Right. Andy says, when Gavin Williamson was Education Secretary, did he ever tell us what his favourite letter was? I think it's I. Almost certainly I. Right. Now that was quite a load of tests. How many are left? Oh God, just the 15 pages of them. How am I ever going to get through this? Lynn says there will be variants forever. Too late. I've had a bonfire of the face masks and I'm not having a booster jab. Game over. On Psycho Cats, my friend had a neighbour whose cat was like Arnie. He followed her to work. She had to use a water pistol on it. Oh, how is that like Arnie? Arnie doesn't follow you to work.
Correct.
You don't, and a water pistol wouldn't work on Arnie.
Affirmative.
Pam says, tell us about the cats. I've told you. Ollie says, could you tell me who the prime buffoon is in this country and also the chief medical clown as well? What's the chief medical clown's name again? Oh, you know what? There's two stories, and I haven't got time for them both. But there's one alarming story about the one thing that we need at Christmas that we might not be able to get our hands on. The one thing that Christmas does mean to everybody, and I'm not talking about Jesus' birthday. I'm talking about what Christmas actually means to us. And then there's they're going to issue a crackdown on law and order. This is their big distraction bomb for next week. Forthcoming attractions. Boris Johnson's going to order a crackdown on law and order in order to regain your trust. And if you fall for that one, then I got a bridge over the Thames I'd like to sell you. But I haven't got time to do them both. It's kind of annoying. How can I not squeeze it all into a 3-hour show? Boris Johnson's going to order a crackdown on prison discipline, sex offences and drug use next month under plans to reassure the public that he is focused on tackling crime. Right, here's a good idea. He could start by going through his own cabinet. And then he could get onto the grasping chances on the benches behind him. Focused on tackling crime? Well, officer, there's about £54 billion disappeared into thin air, supposedly to create an app for your phone that doesn't work 2 years after South Korea made one for about £2.10 that worked in a week. Try looking for that loot, officer. And then he could pick anyone that surrounds him and ask why they thought they could get away with pushing their mates to the front of the queue to supply medical equipment that they had no experience of at 10 times the price that anybody else was paying, and which, if it arrived at all, didn't work. They should keep the police busy on that from now until the end of time. Law and order. But he won't do that, of course, because when they do it, it's not a crime. When anybody else does it, it's off to jail for you, sunshine. So this is the big distraction bomb. A crackdown on crime. That must have taken minutes to dream up, probably at the end of an evening, jotted down on a drinks coaster. This, remember, is the party that's been in power for the past 11 years, during which time they've done nothing but defund the criminal justice system. They let go 20,000 police officers, 23,500 police support staff. They sold 600 police stations, half the magistrates' courts, and over a third of the county courts in England. Sometimes to organised crime, if you can believe that. They reduced the Crown prosecution's budget by a quarter And legal aid payments for defence solicitors have become so low that suspects find it hard to find lawyers in large parts of the country. Prisons are so poorly funded that inmates are confined to their cells in what amounts to solitary confinement, and they've had to close classrooms, gyms, libraries, workshops, and offending behaviour programmes in prisons. So even if there were enough police to catch someone, they wouldn't have a station to take them to, and even if they could find one, they wouldn't have the staff to process them, and they wouldn't have the courts to try them in, and if they did get a date for their court case, they wouldn't have the lawyers to prosecute or defend them, and they wouldn't have the jails to send them to, even if they did. But please, Prime Minister, tell us more about you being the party of law and order. I mean, there must have been a right panic to come up with this as a way to distract us from the corruption scandal that the Tories are in up to their eyeballs, and the cronyism and the sleaze and the lies and the failure of Brexit that's even being understood by their biggest cult fans now. It must have been freaking out that a large number of the people that were persuaded to vote for them last time have rumbled the fact that they've been had. And this is what they've come up with. To add to the performative cruelty that they're acting out on the poorest and the most desperate people in the world, trying to get here in tiny numbers by pushing off from France in boats, because it's the only way they've got left to get here, as all other avenues have been closed. I mean, it comes to something when even dinghy spotting and yelling at foreigners doesn't placate their fans anymore. They need extra distractions to heap on top. And this is what they've gone with. Law and order. Do me a favour. And what happens, by the way, if this just comes and goes, as it's bound to? It's another series of I'm gonnas. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It'll bite the dust, just like every other promise they've ever made, because in the past, they've only had to say they'll do something, and that's been enough to get the votes in. Oh, we'll take back control. Extra money for the NHS. We'll make our own laws. More fish. Levelling up. Control of our borders. How's all that going, by the way?
Fabulous.
I mean, if they were actually serious and not just playing a game of distraction, they'd be concentrating on delivering on those promises, not adding extra promises on top of the ones that they haven't delivered on. Why don't we get to the sunlit uplands first, and then we can see about promising extra sun and extra uplands? I mean, they are verifiably hopeless at everything. Adding to the list of promises isn't going to make any of it come true any faster than if they did one thing at a time, but they can't even do that. So it's back to the old hits. Lock 'em up, crack down, more punishment. And the one that keeps giving, the war on drugs. How can they say this stuff with a straight face? Especially as pretty much all of the Tories that were vying for the top job when it was gifted to Bodger admitted in a sort of competitive outburst of admission that they'd taken pretty much every drug under the sun in an attempt to seem normal. How's that going? So in a nakedly desperate attempt to get back on track and give their fans what they want, Bodger is going to announce a new law and order package this week. And he'll do his best to appear serious and statesmanlike. There won't be any mention of children's cartoons and engine noises, and he'll do his best to pretend that the state we're in now has nothing to do with the party that's been in power for the past 11 years. It's probably still all Jeremy Corbyn's fault. No! So what have they come up with? Prisoners who trash their cells will be forced to repair the damage that they have caused.
What?
Yeah. Now think about that for a moment. Prisoners who trash their cells can't be a very large population for a start, but those that do are presumably among the most violent and disruptive. And what do you need if you are repairing something? Tools. Hammers, chisels, knives, screwdrivers. Basically a smorgasbord of weaponry that a violent inmate would literally kill for. So what else have they got? Measures are also going to be taken to cut off the supply of drugs to jails. Really? Yeah, but aren't there already measures in place to try to cut the supply of drugs in jails? I mean, don't they do that already? Don't they have bars and walls and guards and barbed wire? I mean, if they haven't been able to cut the supply of drugs in jails for 60 years, how are they going to do that now? Brick each cell closed? And by the way, if they can't stop the trade in drugs in prison, how are they ever going to stop it outside prison? They can't. And they know it. They just don't want you to know it. Because that would collapse the house of cards that is the lie about the war on drugs. There is no war. The drugs have won. Everything else is just public relations. So they're going to refuel that war. And if that's their plan, they think more of our intelligence to insult us with all that war on drugs stuff. That's exactly what they're going to do. Bodge is so desperate that he's actually going to announce a wider crackdown on drug use in society. Well, he could start with himself. He admitted taking cocaine. What's the penalty for that? Andrea Leadsom, Dame of the British Empire, admitted to taking cannabis. Jeremy Hunt said he took cannabis. Dominic Raab took cannabis. Rory Stewart smoked opium. Matt Hancock smoked cannabis. Esther McVeigh took cannabis. And, of course, Michael Gove took cocaine. All admitted it. All went unpunished. And this government is all on side to punish other people, not themselves, other people who do the same. And to think that some people have got it into their heads that it's one rule for them and another for everybody else. I mean, can Bodger even hear himself? It's incredible that he's got the nerve to say this stuff out loud. But all he's got to do is get just enough of the public to vote for him next time, and we'll have yet another minority Tory government wielding all of the power. About 40% should do it. Can you fool 40%? All of the time?
Yes.
I believe you can. This thing that we're really desperate for at Christmas that we might not be able to get our hands on, that will be still a story next week. So I'll do it then, on Friday. Don't let me leave the building without doing it. I'll be back at 10 o'clock this evening. Now, right at the bottom of my 14 pages of text and emails is the information as to who's on next. Let me just scroll down. Ian Payne will be here at 4, but right now it's Clyde Bull.
Nick, thank you. And coming up after the news, 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 and